Right guys, today welcome to our Facebook Live, YouTube Live and Instagram Live for today. We're going to be covering a very short sort of subroutine almost, but a routine in of itself for you if you've got back pain. This is one that's going to help just strengthen this corset. We talk a lot about the corset section of this sort of abs, so to speak, and in developing those to provide support for your lumbar spine. So in this video today, we're going to talk about sort of this three-part workout, and you can see on the board behind me we've got the reps and the number of sets. So I'll go through each one of these, and we want to take these lives as opportunities to not just give you a routine, because we could do that by putting it out via email or whichever other way, but we want to explain why we've chosen these exercises, why they're good, because if you can understand more about why we've specifically chosen these with the back pain patient in mind, then you'll understand a little bit more about how they apply to you and other activities and exercises that might equally be beneficial or not, that you might want to avoid. So we'll get straight into it. First one's going to be dead bugs. I'll go through these. We do a slight variation. You might have actually seen these before. So in this video here, you're essentially lying on your back, and these are going to be continuous. We engage that core, that midsection. You can see me sort of doing now. You're just pressing in to make sure everything's working, and having the hands there for an additional feedback is really, really important. And then that core, that tummy is staying in. The temptation when we do this is just to wiggle the legs over and over so that you're not really doing anything. And patients sometimes say, I'm doing lots of these. We go through it in clinic slow, like I'm doing right now in the video. And you see all of a sudden, like, whoa, that's so much more difficult than what I've been doing. The spine should not move at all during this exercise, and you shouldn't lose the tummy like I just did there to demonstrate. So that's really, really important. And when we're doing that exercise, the reason we like it compared to other exercises is because you're engaging the corset. Talk about that transverse abdominis that runs around the midsection. Talk about the obliques, internal and external, as well as some of the other muscles like psoas, etc. They're all working to provide stability to the spine. Now, when we're in that position, lying on the floor, we should have a nice natural hollow in the lower back. Sometimes patients will ask, is this right? I've got this little hollow, my back's arched. It should be arched. There should be a natural arch. And if you've got any sort of glute development like I have, that's going to create a little bit of an accentuated arch anyway. And that's not your spine. That's just the fact there's a bit more cushion on the one end than the other, and it creates that little arc in the back. Now, you should maintain that position throughout the exercise. And in doing so, we covered this a couple of lives back. We want to keep that spine neutral while we've got the core engaged. And this exercise allows you to do that perfectly with those dead bugs. And then we're using the lever of the legs one at a time. The one leg is up and bent while the other leg's going out, and that bent your lower back, because if we did both legs as discs, which we don't really want, and that would make it a lot more difficult. This is like a leg raise, and you'll know if you've been to the clinic. We definitely don't recommend those to patients because they maximize compression at your L5-S1. So it's a case of choosing the right exercise for the patient with back pain that maybe has some element of disc involvement, so that they're not compromising that disc excessively. And sometimes when you start this particular exercise, the dead bugs, you're going to find that actually you might only be able to do 3 or 4 reps, and that's okay. And you start, I've put 10 reps behind me, that's 10 reps on each leg, alternating, but you start on whatever you can do and work up to this. That's the most important thing with these. So if we get into the second exercise, which is the marching bridges, again, you'll notice we're engaging that core at the start of this exercise, hands in the same spot. Those hands being there gives you that double feedback from both the muscles on the inside and your hands on the outside. And then we lift up. All we did here was a bit of hip extension to get up into that position. And then we're alternating. You can see there's a little bit of a wobble as your body's trying to stabilize and hold yourself in place. This is allowing us to keep the core steady whilst we switch from one leg to the other. And why do we use this exercise as a sort of an addition to those dead bugs? Is because, again, we're preparing you for future things. One of the ways that patients sometimes re-injure themselves in the early days is they might slip or move funny in a certain direction and lose that stability, that dynamic stability in the lower back. And by doing the bridge, we're in a safe braced position, we're on the floor, we're in control, there's no outside influences, and then we're switching from one leg to the other as fast or slow as is comfortable and manageable whilst maintaining balance. And in doing so, your core is having to deal with a little bit of that focus, and a little bit of torsional movements at the same time. And this is similar to walking and being upright. So it allows you to maintain the stillness in the spine, the support from the spine, whilst you're switching sides left to right. And we build this out later on into things like lunges and those sorts of exercises, so you can be a bit more dynamic. But we've slowly built it up with the Deadbugs to start with, and then onto these marching bridges. And then the next one we'll talk about in a moment. A little word of warning with this particular exercise: if as you kick your bum up to initiate the movement, if you kick up too high and you lose that neutral spine, you're going to extension where you bend backwards a little bit. And this can sometimes give a little bit of direct pain in the lower portion of the back. You can really put your finger on it, or if you've got sciatica, unfortunately, it might irritate the nerve a little bit and send pain down the legs. That's not a problem. Back off a little bit. Don't go quite as high in the rep, and you'll find that actually it's a lot more manageable. And then you do your alternations. And sometimes actually an exercise like this, which is incredibly safe for you, done properly compared to anything else, it's good to get a little bit of a pain the first time you try these things, because you can use that as an objective measure for improvement. And you know that actually after doing this twice or 3 reps when I started, I'm getting a little bit of pain, that sharp pain, because I'm losing the engagement of the core. And then a couple of weeks on, you're actually able to do 10 reps completely on each leg without getting any pain at all, and you can see that improvement. And with back pain, especially if it's been there for a long period of time, seeing some little micro improvements along the way can really help give you the motivation to continue on, which is really important, because these sorts of things do require consistency. In a lot of cases, they've come about through consistent bad things over a long period of time, and it takes a little bit of consistent effort to make the correction. So that's really important. So we've got these 2 exercises first, and you're going from the Deadbugs straight into the marching bridges. So you do your 10 reps of the one, or your 5 reps, or whichever it is on each leg. You go straight into the marching bridges, and then as soon as you've done that, you're going to switch over to the third exercise, which is going to be the side planks that you can see on the screen here now. You notice that the elbows and the knees, or the elbow and the knee, are in alignment, in alignment along the edge of the mat as a reference point. We're facing straight ahead, we're lowering slowly down to almost touch the floor, not quite, and then lift back up and pause for a moment. A big mistake people make here is the head goes forward and the bum goes back, which loses the engagement and makes it a bit peculiar. But this exercise is a great one. Now, sometimes patients ask, firstly, plank. Well, why can't I do a normal plank? The forces and the way in which they travel through your spine slightly different in terms of the intradiscal pressure when you do a side plank versus a straight plank. So we would not recommend you doing a straight plank, especially if you're in the recovery period. We refer to the membership site that we've got, where we take patients through, or you guys through online, through those phases of recovery. It's too soon to be doing something like a plank. This is a much more appropriate exercise or appropriate variation of a plank for someone with back pain in the early stages of recovery. So it doesn't put the same pressure through the spine. The second point is people go, well, this is really easy, I can do it all day. Invariably, that's not the case, especially for someone with back pain. But I wouldn't be tempted to do it on your feet and on your elbow, because what happens is you can do it, but the same with we've discussed with things like the bands. Sometimes it's better to just take the thing down a little bit, do the simple one, and do it really, really well. And you'll feel that the engagement is so much more effective doing it on the knees. You can really focus on the actual core. You're working on that underside, the abs, the side of your flank closest to the mat, and you're able to really control the contraction and control the movement. If you're too worried about being balanced out on your feet because the pivot's too long, or the anchor points are too long, you're worried about, my knees are getting a bit uncomfortable, my ankles are uncomfortable, too much weight's on my shoulders, now my shoulder's getting a bit sore. And it creates a lot of challenges that are detracting from the effectiveness of the exercise. So definitely recommend doing them like this because it works. It's easy, it's safe. And at this stage of recovery, the patient this is really good for, you need to do things that are safe, that have minimal chances of re-aggravation, that may give you a little bit of feedback, but are okay to do and fundamentally won't cause you any trouble. So that's really important why we've chosen these. There was one sort of bonus point, if you will, or bonus exercise that I was going to discuss. We haven't got a video up on it today because we didn't want to confuse matters. Focus on this for the time being, but we were going to consider adding in bodyweight squats to this in the place of the side planks. And the reason for that is that we need to take that core and put it upright. To work on it effectively. But although the squat in it itself would be okay, structuring your workout is also quite important. If we've got you doing these 2 exercises on the floor and then you're jumping straight up to do the squat and then back down again, there's a lot of getting up and lying down, getting up and lying down. And right now for you, if you're at the stage where these are appropriate, then that might not necessarily be the best option for you. It might be better to do the side plank, do your floor exercises, and then do the standing exercises separate. And you'll see this inside the membership site anyway, the way we've structured this. There's reasons why you want to pair certain exercises together, because they enhance the effectiveness of them without giving you other issues that maybe some people don't necessarily think are issues, like jumping up and down to do the squat and then get back on for the floor work. So just a sort of lot of insight into what goes on when we're thinking about creating these routines. But in review, we've got 10 reps, each leg this is. So you're going to go one leg, right leg of the dead bugs. We go straight into 10 reps of the marching bridges. And then we go straight into 10 reps on the left, 10 reps on the right. Or we'll do all the reps on the one side, on the side planks, and then switch over to the other side for the side planks. We've also tried to pair here exercises that are exercises you do on each side as well. It just makes everything work a little bit better and flow a little bit easier as well. And then you go straight back to the start. Now the ambition here is that you might be able to do hopefully 3 sets of 10 reps, and you just go through that continuously. Take you about 10 minutes, maybe a touch less, or maybe a touch longer, depending on you. But the first time you do this routine, try it nice and easy at home, see how you go, don't rush yourself on time. And then with future times, you can try and get that time down and maybe build it into other parts of your routine. So hope that's been useful. You see there's one last little bit down here, post-workout stretch. Now, if you're part of the free membership site, you'll know that on there you've got that little routine that you do, particularly the lower body stretching and the towel exercise. And if you've been tuning into any of our Facebook Lives, you'll know how much we've been promoting the use of a towel. It's a free aid. It's very contrary to what is commonly recommended for patients with back pain, and it really helps patients that do it. So when you finish this routine, a little bit of light stretching for a few moments afterwards on those leg muscles to keep them nice and supple. You might find the hip flexors and the glutes are a little bit tight after this one, after the routine in general. And then you jump on that towel for 2 to 3 minutes to finish up. And then you're done. So it should be a nice, easy routine for the overwhelming majority of people watching this video to do. And again, if you want more information on this and the enhancements as well, you can go and check out the Back in Shape membership site, which we'll put a link to. There's probably links all over the place by now. So yeah, you can always get into it on there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. You got any questions, Lara?
Yes, so one question. I've got dull lower back pain, but it's more kind of leg pain that I have. Are these exercises going to be suitable?
So we've been getting a lot of stuff on YouTube with these sorts of questions. Is it suitable for me, etc., etc.? There's a good chance that these exercises are suitable for you. Unfortunately, it confuses a lot of patients when they have more prominent leg pain rather than actual back pain. And they say, well, why am I doing a back exercise? Why not a leg exercise? A very, very common sense problem solving approach to that is do this for 5 days and see if it makes any difference to the back and or leg pain. There's a good chance that it is more likely coming from your back. A lot of people are going to be noticing right now with regards to back pain that things are starting to build up and they may have a bit of an aching in the back and getting some shooting down the back of the leg, for example. And that is generally just a referral. It's the way in which our nerves are made up. It's the mapping on our system. I sometimes use the example of the lighting in the room. We've got a light just over here on this wall. If the light starts flicking on and off, which is your leg, so there might be someone fiddling in the lower back with the light switch. Look at the light switch rather than the light, and the light is where the leg is. So sometimes that example is a bit of a roundabout way of saying what you're experiencing. Go to the back, because that's where the control centers are for your legs and where you might be experiencing some of those symptoms. Try that first. If it doesn't make a difference, then you can then come back and by all means get in contact with us. But it should really make a difference for that.
Another question, is there anything to avoid directly after doing this whole routine?
Yeah. So a good question. After you finish this routine, what should you be avoiding? I'll cover sort of 2 things and something you should do as well. So after you've done this, if you are someone that's got actual back pain right now, or have had it a little bit on and off over the last few weeks, then I'd definitely be trying a bit of icing. So 3 to 5 minutes, center portion of that lower back straight after you've finished the routine. I definitely would not be doing 2 things. Number 1, you might have picked up on it when I mentioned about the squats or the use of squats in this routine. getting up and down. The reason we don't like getting up and down or getting you guys to get up and down after or during this routine is because it involves flexion. A lot of this routine has been putting the spine in a neutral position to make sure that the discs aren't unduly compressed throughout the routine. So if you finish this and you go and sit on the sofa like this, leaning on your forearms or something like that, that's going to be problematic. It's going to put stress back on that disc. And this is also a big problem. It's a very good question, actually, because a lot of people overlook this. You finish the workout, you go and sit on the sofa for 5 minutes afterwards, playing on your phone or whatever. And then 10, 15 minutes later, you go, oh, my back's sore. And you think, well, it was the routine. But actually, no, it's the sitting on the sofa like that straight after you've done the routine. So you want to be very, very careful for that. And always just take a step back if you do anything and it makes you worse. When people understand the structure of the back, that's why we do these lives, to try and educate you guys a little bit more. It allows you to have smarter decision-making processes when you do experience a bit of pain, to look back and say, what did I do after that? Did I sit on the sofa and play on things? As a complete or side tangent, so to speak, after I've done a run on a treadmill, for example, I never ever sit on the edge of the treadmill playing on my phone while I'm cooling down, catching my breath, because I've just been I'm flexing over massively, putting pressure on those discs after we've been going bang, 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 bang throughout the run. So that's another example. And if you're out doing your runs, again, don't sit on a park bench when you've finished, because you run the risk of making things worse and then misattributing what's made that worse, which leads to people avoiding or being fearful of doing activities. And that's the last thing we want any of you guys to be worried about, is doing activities because misattributing the what's caused the pain. So definitely don't be slouching afterwards. Get out, move around lightly, keep a little bit of movement, a little bit of ice, and then you can go back to your sort of normal activities. So that's a really good question.
Interesting question. So I've been doing longer walks than normal. Towards the end of my walk, I can feel sort of pain on the side of the thigh. Yep. Could that be related to the back?
It could be, but if you're going up and down walks, then it might be that your quads and some of the you've got some of the glute muscles up here, and one called tensor fasciae lata just in this region up here, which pulls all the way down the side of the thigh. So it could be a muscular fatigue. You're just not used to walking like that, and if you're walking up and down areas, it's going to load your quads, especially the vastus lateralis, which is on the side of the thigh, a little bit more. So that could be it. It could be that it's irritating some of the nerves in a certain section of your lumbar spine, possibly the lower section, giving you a little bit of referral. But the easy way to test that is do a shorter walk, see if you get the same sort of symptoms. If you don't get the same sort of symptoms, it's most likely an overstrain and that the muscles just aren't used to it. Same way as if you do a workout that you haven't done for a long time, or take that step up and you do a very intense workout, you're going to start to feel some elements of fatigue and soreness in some of those muscles. And if we take that example, and sometimes people don't do this, but it's a helpful way of thinking things. If we took that example to the bench press, and say your walk right now is 50% longer than you'd usually do, because that's the only exercise we get every day. If I said to you, go into the gym and do 50% more squat than you ever do, you'd be in a lot of trouble. And that's very, very obvious. You might not get up afterwards. So take that same example, you're putting extra stress above and beyond what you have the adaptive capability to put on those muscles, and they're going to react and tell you about it. And as long as you're sensible and don't continually do that without allowing appropriate levels of rest, you'll be perfectly fine. As a matter of being sensible, just to be proactive, towel exercise when you get in, after doing a little bit of those hip stretches that we talked about numerous times before, and do a little bit of the icing as well once you've finished. Again, those things will all help at least mitigate against the worst outcome.
What about focusing on your posture and your core when you're out? If you kind of tighten your core, is that going to help? Yeah, so the focus on the posture, engaging the core, standing up correctly when you are out and about walking would definitely be a useful thing to do. Almost goes without saying. I definitely recommend doing that. So you recommend tightening your core and tensing your abs while you're walking? It shouldn't be tense to the point where it's uncomfortable, but we should have a little bit of engagement, a little bit of passive tone. You'll notice if you're running a little bit more, walking a little bit more briskly, that'll naturally kind of happen. If you switch up your pace from perhaps you're walking with your other half or something like that, or walking the dog, having a chat,